And my Christian name, Philip.
My infant tongue could make of both names nothing longer or more explicit than
Pip. So I called myself
Pip, and came to be called Pip. Ours was the marsh country, down by the river within 20 miles of the sea. My first most vivid and broad impression of the identity of things seemed to me to have been gained on this memorable lawn.
Christmas Eve afternoon towards evening, I found out for certain
That this bleak place overgrown with nettles was the church,
and that Philip Pirrip, late of this parish, and also Georgiana, wife of the above, were dead, buried.
and that the dark flat wilderness beyond the churchyard was the marshes, and that the low leaden line beyond was the river,
And that the distant savage lair from which the wind was rushing was the sea.
And that the small bundle of shivers, growing afraid of it all, and beginning to cry, was Pip.
Hold your noise! Keep still, you little devil, or I'll cut your throat. Tell us your name, quickly.
Pip, sir!
Where do you live? Point out the place. Ha! What fat cheeks you got? Darn me if I could eat them too. Look here, where's your mother?
There, sir. Also Georgiana. That's my mother.
Is that your father? Along your mother?
Yes, sir. Him too. Late of this parish.
Then who do you live with? Supposing you're kindly let to live. I haven't made up my mind yet.
My sister, sir. Mrs. Joe Gargery. Wife of Joe Gargery. The blacksmith, sir.
The blacksmith, you say? You know what fire is?
Yes, sir.
And you know what whittles is?
Yes, sir.
Then you get me a fire when you get me whittles. You bring them both to me or have your heart and liver out. You bring them both to me to the old battery over yonder. You dare say a word or make a consign concerning such a person as me, you'll be let to live. But if you fail or go from my word, no matter how small, your heart and liver will be tore out, roasted and aged.
Where have you been, young monkey? Tell me directly where you've been to send me off with such worry and fright.
the churchyard.
The churchyard? Was it for me? You would have been at the churchyard long ago and stayed there. Who brought you up by hand?
You did.
And why did I do it, I should like to know?
I don't know.
I don't, and I'd never do it again, I know that. I can clearly say I've never had this apron up of mine since the day you were born. It's bad enough being a blacksmith wife and him, a gardery, and having to be your mother. Ha! Churchyard indeed, you two will drive me to the churchyard if you're not careful. And what a precious pair you'd be without me. Was that the gun?
Ah, there's another convict off.
What does that mean, Joe? Escaped, escaped. What's a convict?
There was a convict off last night after sunset gun. Fired one of him. Now it appears they're firing one of another.
Who's firing? Drat that boy, what a questioner he is. Ask no questions and you'll be told no lies. Where does the firing come from? From the hulks. Oh, hulks. What's hulks? That's the way with this boy. You answer him one question and he asks you a dozen more. The hulks are prison ships across the marshes. Who's in the prison ship? Look, I didn't bring you up to badger the lives out of people. If I did, it would be blame to me, not praise. People are put in the hulks because they do all sorts of bad things. They rob and they forge, and they always start by asking questions.
Though I was hungry, I felt that I must have something in reserve for my dreadful acquaintance.
Joe had just looked away and got my bread and butter down my leg.
What's the matter now?
I say, Pip, old chap, you do yourself a mischief. You're sick somewhere. You can't have chawed it, Pip.
What's the matter now?
If you can cough any trifle in it up, I'd recommend you do it. Manners is manners, but still, you're else, you're else.
Now perhaps you'll mention what's the matter, you great stuck pig!
You know, Pip, you and me is always best of friends, and I'll be the last to telephone you any time. But such a most uncommon bolt as that.
Been bolting his food, has he?
You know, I bolted when I was your age, frequent, and as a boy I've been among many bolters. But I never see your bolting equal yet. It's a mercy you ain't bolted dead.
Now you come along and be dosed.
Some medical beasts derived tar water in those days as a fine medicine.
Having a belief in its virtues corresponds to its nastiness. Joe got up with half a pint.
Now get along to bed.
I was never allowed a candle to light me the way to bed.
And as I went upstairs in the dark, I felt fearfully sensible of great convenience that the hulks were handy for me.
I was clearly on my way there. I had begun by asking questions, and I was going to rob Mrs. Joe. As soon as a great black velvet pool outside my window was shot with grey, I got up and went downstairs. Every crack in every board, and every board upon the way, calling after me.
Stop being! Get up! Mrs. Joe!
I have no time for selection. No time for anything. I've no time to spare.
I stole some bread,
Some rind of cheese!
About half a jar of mincemeat, some brandy from a stone bottle.
which I decanted into a glass bottle which I brought for the purpose.
Diluting the stone bottle for a jug.
A beautiful, round, compact pie. And a fire from the forge.
I ran for the misty marshes!
It was a bright morning and was very damp.
The mist was heavier yet when I got out on the marshes. So that everything that seemed to run at me was actually what I was running at.
Find somebody else's pot pie.
Stop him! The cattle came upon me like suddenness, staring out of its eyes and steaming through its nostrils.
One black ox fixed me so obstinately with its eyes and moved his blood head round in such an accusatory manner.
I couldn't help it, sir. It wasn't for myself I took it. Upon which he put down his head, blew a cloud of smoke out of his nose, and vanished with a kick up of his hind legs and a flourish of his tail. I had just crossed the ditch and scrapped my mouth when I saw the man sitting before me.
It was not the same man.
Another convict!
He went free to the mist. I was seen in the battery after that.
There was the right man.
What's in the bottle, boy?
Brandy?
You all right this evening? Brought no one with you?
No, sir, no.
And no one followed you?
No, sir, I'm sure he didn't.
What did you say?
The other man, dressed like you. I saw him over there. I thought it was you.
What do you look like?
He had bruises on his face.
Where?
Here, on his cheek.
Where is he? Point out the place. I'll take him down. Ah! Curses iron on my leg. Pass the fire, boy. Go! Go on, boy, go home!
The last I saw of him, he was working hard at his fetter.
The last I heard him, I stopped in the mist to listen, and the fire was still going.
It was Christmas Day, and we would have a superb dinner.
Hairspray stuffed fowl. Some mince pie had been made yesterday morning, and the pudding was already on the boil.
This pork, ma'am, is the finest I have ever eaten. Especially grateful, boy, to them which put you up by hand. Uncle Pumblechook, Joe's uncle.
But appropriated by Mrs. Joe.
There's a subject. If you want a subject for a real sermon, look at pork. Miss Mr. Wopsle, the clerk at church and an amateur thespian of some note.
True, sir, many a moral for the young.
You listen to this.
Swine were the companions of the prodigal. The gluttony of swine is put before us as an example to the young. What is detestable in a pig is more detestable in a boy.
Or girl. Mr. Hubble, the wheelwright.
And his wife, Mrs. Hubble.
But they have little consequence in our story.
Of course, or girl, Mr. Hubble, but there is no girl present.
Besides, think what you've got to be grateful for if you're born a squeaker.
He wasn't a child ever was.
But, I mean a poor pretty squeaker, ma'am. If he had been born such, would he have been here now? No.
Unless in that form.
But I don't mean in that form, sir. I mean enjoying himself with his elders and his betters, improving himself with a conversation and rolling in the lap of luxury. Would he have been doing such now? No. And what would have been your destination? You would have been disposed of for so many shillings as according to the market price of the article, and Dunstable the butcher would have come up to you as you lay on the straw and whipped you under his left arm, and from his right he would have retrieved a penknife from his waistcoat pocket. He would have shed your blood, had your life, no bring up by hand, not a bit of it.
He is a world of trouble to you, Mum.
Trouble? Trouble, I've got this white by hands. He's nothing but trouble. His middle name is Trouble. And it's a brandy, Uncle.
Oh, heaven, come at last!
He would find it was weak. He would say it was weak.
And I was lost. Mum would you try for it with glass?
Looks at it through the light, goes her back and drinks the brandy off. Oh, got there!
I've no doubt it murdered him somehow.
Some pudding and water, Mrs. Joe.
Of course, Uncle.
I was saved!
And perhaps a piece of that pie.
No, I was finally done for.
Of course, Uncle. You must all taste such delicious present of Uncle Pumblechook's. I may say it's a pie, a savoury pork pie.
We'll do our best endeavours, ma'am. Now let us have a cut at this same pie.
Mr. Pumblechook balanced his knife on his finger.
Appetite reawakened in the Roman nostrils of Mr. Wopsle.
Mr. Hubble remarks.
A bit of savoury pork pie could come atop of anything you could mention and do no harm.
Joe said,
You shall have some, Pip.
It's gone! I ran for my life!
"Here I look sharp, come on!" Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm on a chase in the name of the king, and I want the blacksmith.
And pray what you might want with him?
Missy, speaking for myself, I should reply, I have the honour and pleasure of his fine wife's acquaintance. I'll answer a little job done.
Good.
You see, blacksmith, we've had a problem with these. The lock on one of them just doesn't work anymore. Will you throw your eye over it?
Convict Sergeant.
Aye, too. They're pretty well known out on the marshes in the village over yonder. Has anybody of you seen anything of such game? No.
No.
Nobody thought of me.
Well, they'll find themselves trapped in a circle sooner than they thought of. Now, blacksmith, if you're ready, His Majesty the King is.
May we join you in your arms, sir?
Wopsle said he would go too.
Joe will take safe with Mrs. Sharproot.
If you bring his head back blown to bits by a musket, don't look at me to stick it back together again.
The weather was cold and threatening, the way dreary,
The footing bad.
darkness coming on.
A bit of sleet came rattling against us here on the east wind.
I hope we shan't find them, Joe.
Give a shilling if they cut a rum pip.
And the double I confound you as two wild beasts!
Mine that! I took him! Mine that!
Handcuffs there!
I took him He knows it, that's enough for me.
Take notice, God. He tried to murder me.
Try to murder him. Try and not do it. I give him up to you, that's what I've done. This gentleman, if you please, is villain. Now the Hulk has got his gentleman again through me.
He tried to murder me.
He lies. He's a liar born and die a liar.
Come away, Joe.
Did I tell you to murder me if you could?
A moment, sir. I wish to say something respecting this escape.
Joe!
It may prevent some people laying under suspicion along me.
Make it quick! Joe!
A man can't starve. At least I can't. I took some broken whips over the village yonder, up where the church meets with the marshes.
You mean you stole?
I'll tell you where from the blacksmiths.
Hello!
Hello. Here.
I took some broken whittles, a dram of liquor, and a pie.
Have you happened to miss such an article as a pie, blacksmith?
My wife did at the very moment you came in.
So you're the blacksmith, eh? I'm sorry to say I ate your pie.
God knows you're welcome for it, as far as it was ever mine. We don't know what you've done, but we wouldn't have you starved to death for it, poor miserable fellow creature. We'll just pit.
One morning,
A few months later in the parlour, I was expending great efforts in a letter to Joe.
I say, old chap, what a scholar you are, ain't you?
I should like to be.
Why, is a J and an O equal to anything? Is a J and an O pick? A J, O, Joe.
Read the rest, Joe. My dear Joe, I hope I shall soon be able to teach you soon. What larks? Pip.
Astonishing. You are a scholar.
How do you spell Gargery, Joe?
I don't spell it at all.
But supposing you did?
Can't be supposed, though I'm uncommon fond of reading too.
Are you, Joe?
Uncommon? Give me a good book or a good newspaper, sit me down before a good fire, and I ask no better. Lord, when you do come to a J and an O, and says to you, here at last is a J-O Joe. How interesting reading is.
Now, if this boy ain't great for this night, he never will be. Miss Havisham has offered to go take him to play there, and of course he's going, or I'll work him.
Miss Havisham, uptown? Well, to be sure, I wonder how she comes to know fit.
Noodle, who said she knew him? Couldn't Uncle Pumblechook ask if she knew of a boy to go and play there? And isn't it barely possible that Uncle Pumblechook, being a tenant of hers, that he goes up there to pay his rent? And couldn't Uncle Pumblechook then go ask of a boy to go and play up there? Isn't it barely possible that Uncle Pumblechook, being thoughtful and considerate of us, though you may not think it, Joseph, then mentioned this boy standing and prancing here?
Which I solemnly declare I was not doing.
That I have forever been willing to slave to.
Good indeed. Well put, prettily pointed. Good again. Now, Joseph, do you know the case?
No, Joseph, you do not know the case, that you do not know that this boy's future may be made by going to Miss Havisham's tonight. She has offered to take him in by hand and for tomorrow morning as well. And Laura mercy me, here I stand talking to mere mooncalves with Uncle Pumblechook waiting. Goodbye, Joe.
God bless you, Pip, old chap.
Boy, be forever grateful to all the friends, but especially unto them who had brought you up by hand. Boy,
63.
And 8.
71? What name?
Pumblechook.
Quite right.
A young lady came across the courtyard. She seemed very pretty
and very proud.
And 14.
87.
This is Pip.
This is Pip, is it? Come in, Pip. Oh, did you wish to see Miss Havisham?
If Miss Havisham wished to see me.
Ah, but you see, she don't.
We went into the house by a side door. She took up a candle, for the house was all dark.
We went up a gloomy staircase, and then another.
And still it was dark. More passages, and up another staircase.
And only the candle lighted us.
At last we came to a door.
Go in.
After you, miss.
Don't be ridiculous, boy, I'm not going in.
A pretty large room.
Well lighted with wax candles.
No glimpse of daylight was to be seen in it.
In an armchair with an elbow resting on the table, and a head leaning on that hand, sat the strangest lady I've ever seen, or shall ever see.
She was dressed in rich materials, satins and lace and silks that were white.
Her shoes were white.
And she had a long white veil dependent from her hair. She had bridal flowers in her hair, but her hair was white.
Some bright jewels sparkled on her neck and on her hands. She had not quite finished dressing, for she had but one shoe on.
The other was on the table near her hand.
Her veil was but half arranged.
I saw the bride within the bridal dress had withered like the dress, and like the flowers, and had no brightness left but the brightness of her sunken eyes.
Who's there?
Pip, ma'am.
Pip.
Mr. Pumpkincheek's boy, ma'am. Come to play.
Come closer, let me look at you. Come close. Look at me. Are you not afraid of a woman who hasn't seen the sun since you were born?
No.
Do you know what I touch?
Yes, ma'am.
What do I touch?
Your heart.
Broken. I am tired. I want diversion, and I have done with men and women. Play. Sometimes I have a sick fancy, and I have a sick fancy that I may see some play. 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 Are you sullen and obstinate?
No, ma'am. It's just so new here.
So new to him, so old to me. So strange to him, so familiar to me. So melancholy to us both. Call Estella. Call Estella. Can you do that? Call Estella.
Stand in the dark of a mysterious passage of an unknown house, bawling, Estella! To a scornful young lady neither visible nor responsive was almost as bad as playing to order.
But she answered at last, and her light came along the dark passageway like a star.
Miss Havisham beckoned her to come close and took up a jewel from the table.
Your own one day, my dear, and you will use it well. Now, let me see you play cards with this boy.
With this boy? Why, he's a common labouring boy.
Well, you can break his heart.
What do you play, boy?
Nothing but beggar my neighbour, miss.
Beggar him.
So we sat down to cards.
2 for the Queen. Jack. He calls the knave Jack, this boy. And what coarse hands he had. I had never thought of being ashamed of my hands before. Her contempt for me was so strong that it became infectious, and I caught it.
She won the game.
And I dealt.
And that was only natural, Miss Dealt.
Stupid, common little boy.
What do you think of her?
I don't like to say.
Tell me in my ear.
I think she's very proud.
Anything else?
I think she's very pretty.
Anything else?
I think she's very insulting.
Anything else?
I think I should like to go home now.
You'll never see her again, though she is so pretty.
I'm not sure I shouldn't like to see her again, but I should like to go home now.
You shall go home soon. Play the game now.
I played the game to an end of the cellar, and she beggared me. She threw the cards down on the table when she'd won them all, as if she'd despised them for having been one of me.
When shall I have you here again? Let me think. Come again in 6 days, do you hear?
Yes, Mum.
Estella, take him down. Let him have something to eat. Goodbye.
I followed the candle down as I had followed the candle up.
Until she opened the side entrance, I had fancied that it must necessarily be night time.
The rush of daylight quite confounded me.
You like my key, you boy?
my great surprise, exchanging a broad stare with a pale young gentleman with red eyelids and light hair.
Hello, young fellow.
Hello,
Who let you in?
Mrs. Stella.
Who gave you leave to prowl about?
Mrs. Stella.
Come and fight. Stop a minute though. I ought to give you a reason for fighting too. There it is.
His spirit inspired me with great respect
He never once hit me hard.
and was always knocked down. I'm sorry to recall, but the more I hit him, the harder I hit him.
That means you have fun.
Can I help you?
No, thank you. Good afternoon.
Stella appeared. There was a bright flush upon her face, as though something had happened to delight her.
She beckons to me. Come here, you may kiss me if you like.
She gave me the bread and the meat as if I was a dog in disgrace.
Well, boy, how did you get on uptown?
Pretty well, sir.
Pretty well? Pretty well is no answer. Tell us what you mean by pretty well, boy!
I mean pretty well, sir.
No. Don't lose your temper on him, Mum. Leave this lad to me. Leave this lad to me. Boy, what is Miss Havisham like?
Very tall and dark.
Is she, Uncle?
Good! This is a way to happen. We are beginning to hold our own, I think, Mum.
I'm sure you know so well how to deal with him.
Now, boy, what was Miss Havisham doing of when you went in today?
She was sitting in a black velvet coach.
In a black velvet coach?
Yes, and Mrs. Stella, that's her niece, I think, handed her a cake and wine through the coach window on a gold plate.
Was anybody else there?
4 dogs.
Large or small?
Immense. And they fought for veal cutlets out of a silver basket.
Where is this coach then, Lady Gracious?
In Miss Havisham's room. But there weren't any horses to it.
Can this be possible, Uncle? What does the boy mean?
I'll tell you my opinion, Mum. It's a sedan chair. She's flighty, you know, very flighty. Flighty enough to pass her days away in a sedan chair.
Have you ever seen her in it?
How could I, when I've never seen her in my life, never clapped eyes upon her?
Goodness, Uncle!
Once Mr. Pumplechook had driven off, I remained by Joe.
What larks, eh, Pip? What larks?
Joe,
Yes, Pip.
Joe, you know all about Miss Havisham's?
Wonderful.
It's a terrible thing, Joe. It ain't true.
What are you telling her, Pip? You don't mean to say it's...
Yes, I do. It's lies, Joe.
But not all of it. Wait, you don't mean to say there was no black velvet coach? But at least there was dogs, Pip. If there weren't no Will Cutlets, at least there was dogs.
No, Joe.
A dog, a puppy, come.
No, Joe. There wasn't anything at all of that kind.
This won't do, old chap. Where do you expect to go to?
It's terrible, Joe, ain't it?
Terrible? It's awful. What possessed you?
I don't know what possessed me, Joe. But I wish you hadn't taught me to call names of cards jacks. And I wish my boots weren't so thick. Or my hands so coarse.
Come on, old chap. Don't cry. But there's one thing you can be sure of, namely that lies is lies. Howsoever they come, they didn't ought to. They come from the father of lies and work round to the same. Don't you tell no more of them, old chap. That ain't the way to get out of being common.
6 days later, I was at Satter's house again.
so much so?
No,
Now you course little monster, what do you think of me now?
I shall not tell you.
Because you're going to tell upstairs, is that it?
No, that's not it.
Why don't you cry again, you little wretch?
Because I'll never cry for you again.
We resumed our journey, and as we were going up, we met a gentleman groping his way down.
An exceedingly tall man with an exceedingly pale face with a corresponding bony hand. Whom do we have here?
A boy, Mr. Jaggers.
Boy of the neighborhood, eh?
Yes, sir.
And why do you come here?
Miss Havisham sent for me, sir.
Well, mind you, behave yourself. You're a bad set of fellows. I've had much experience with boys in my time. Now behave yourself.
His hand smelled of scented soap. We were soon in Miss Havisham's room, but she and everything else was just as I had left them.
So the days have gone away, have they?
Yes, Mum. Today is...
There. I don't wish to know. Does she grow prettier and prettier, Pip? Break their hearts, my pride and hope. Break their hearts and have no mercy. Since you are not willing to play, are you willing to work?
Yes, Mum.
Give me your hand. This is where I shall be laid when I am dead. They shall come and look at me here. What do you think that is? That's where all those cobwebs are.
I can't guess what it is, Mum.
It's a great cake. A bride's cake. Mine. Come, walk me.
The main promise that the work I had to do was walk Miss Havisham round and round the room.
Slower, Pip. This is my birthday. I don't suffer it to be spoken of. On this day of the year, long before you were born, this pile of decay was brought here. It and I have worn away together. The mice have gnawed at it, and sharper teeth than the teeth of mice have gnawed at me. When the ruin is complete and when they lay me dead, on the bride's table with my bride's dress, which shall be done, which shall be the ruined curse upon him. Sing, Pip, sing.
It was a song Joe used to describe himself at the forge.
Hammer boys round old Clem, with a thump and a sound, old Clem. Beat it out, old Clem, with a clink for a stout, old Clem. Hammer boys round old Clem, with a thump and a sound, old Clem. Beat it out, old Clem, with a clink for a stout, old Clem. And the boys round old Clem, with a thump and a sound, old Clem. Beat it out, old Clem, with a clink for a stout.
You are growing tall, Pip. Tell me a game that's named after that blacksmith.
Joe Gargery, ma'am.
Meaning the master you would be apprenticed to?
Yes, Miss Havisham.
Then you'd better be apprenticed at once. Do you think Garger would come here with you and bring your indentures?
Yes, ma'am.
Then let him come.
The next day but one, Joe arrayed himself in his Sunday clothes.
You are the husband of the sister of this boy?
It was very aggravating, but throughout the interview, Joe persisted in addressing me instead of Miss Havisham.
Stay here. I married your sister.
And you raised the boy with the importance of making him your apprentice?
You know what we'll look forward to betwixt us.
Does the boy like the trade? Has he made any objections?
You know it with a wish of your own heart.
You expect no premium with the boy?
Joe, why don't you answer? You know it to be no, Pip, so wherefore should I say it?
Pip has earned a premium here, and here it is. There are 25 guineas in that bag. Give it to your master, Pip.
That's very liberal on your part, Pip.
Goodbye, Pip.
Am I to come again, Miss Havisham?
No, Garger is your master now.
strong conviction I shall never like Joe's trade.
I believed it before, she's glamorous man.
Now it was called the common.
Joe, don't you think I ought to make Miss Havisham a visit?
What for, old chap? She might think you wanted something, expected something other.
Don't you think I might say that I did not, Joe?
Well, you might, and she might credit it. Similarly, she mightn't. You see, Miss Havisham done the handsome thing by you, and that were all.
Yes, Joe.
All.
Yes, Joe, but what I wanted to say was, as we were rather slack just now, if you would give me half holiday tomorrow, I think I would go uptown and make a call on Miss S. Havisham.
Which would name S. Havisham, unless she'd been rechristened.
I know, Joe, I know. But what do you think of it, Joe?
Well, if you think well of it, then I think well of it.
Joe kept a journeyman whose name was Orlick. A broad-shouldered,
Loose-limbed,
Sporty fellow, of great strength.
never in a hurry and always slouching.
Now, Master, surely you're not going to favour any one of us? If Pip has an half holiday, do as much for old Orlick.
Why? What will you do with it if you get it?
What'll I do with it? What'll he do with it? I'll do as much with it as him.
As to Pip, he's going uptown.
Well, then as to old Orlick, he's going uptown. Can't only one who can go uptown.
Don't lose your temper.
Shall if I like. Summon their uptowning. Master, no favouring in this shop for you, man.
Well, as in general, you work as well as most men. There'd be a half holiday for all.
Like you, fool, giving holidays to great ideal hulkers like that. You are a rich man upon my life to waste wages in that way. I wish I was his master. You'd be everybody's master if you did.
Let her alone.
I'll be a match for all noodles and rogues, and I couldn't be a match without being a noodle, without being a match for your master, the gundest-headed king of all noodles. And I couldn't be a match without being a rogue, and being a match for you, the blackest-looking rogue between this and France now. You're a foul shrew, Montgomery.
Let her alone, I
What did he say? What did he say? What did that Orlick say to me, Pip, with my husband standing by? Oh, hold me, hold me. I'd hold you. I'd hold you under the pump and choke it out of you.
I tell you, let her alone.
To hear him, in my own house, my husband by. Oh.
What would the Let's Go do now? Without as much as pulling off their seamed aprons, they went at one another.
but if any man in our neighbourhood could stand up against Joe, I never saw that man.
Bonnet was very cinnamon for coldness. Joe picked up Mrs. Joe and sensible on the floor.
How many times I passed and repassed Miss Havisham's gate before I made up my mind to ring, I know not.
Well, I hope you want nothing, you'll get nothing.
No, indeed, Miss Havisham. I only wanted you to know that I'm doing very well in my apprenticeship, and I'm always much obliged to you.
There. Come now again. Come again on your birthday. Are you looking round for Stella?
I hope Mrs. Stella is well.
Abroad, educating for a lady, far out of reach, prettier than ever, admired by all who see her. Do you feel that you have lost her?
There was such a malignant enjoyment in the utterance of these last words that I was at a loss of what to say.
It was a very dark night when, miserable, I set out on the walk home.
Beyond town,
I found a heavy mist out, and it fell wet and thick.
Who's there? Orlick? You're late.
Well, you're late. By the by, the guns is going again.
Are the hulks?
Aye, they've had some of the birds flown from the cages. The guns have begun to start about. Here one presently. Perfect night for cutting off in. We'd be puzzled how to bring down a jailbird on the wing tonight.
There's something something wrong up at your place, Pip. Run!
Bystanders drew back to reveal my sister, lying about sense or moving on a bare board, where she'd been knocked down by a tremendous blow to the back of her head.
On the ground beside her was a convict's iron, which had been filed asunder. The iron seemed to be my convict's iron.
It was horrible to think that I had provided the weapon, however undesignedly, could not think otherwise. It had been about a month after Mrs. Joe's reappearance in the kitchen when
Biddy came along.
Biddy was Mr. Wopsle's great aunt's granddaughter.
With her, I struggled through my grammar as if it had been
The bramble bush.
and she became a blessing to the household.
She had not been with us more than a year when I observed myself one evening that she had curiously thoughtful and attentive eyes that were good. She managed our whole domestic life, and wonderfully too.
Biddy, how do you manage it? Either I am very stupid or you are very clever.
What is it that I manage? I don't know.
How do you manage, Biddy? To learn everything that I learn and to always keep up with me.
I might as well ask you how you manage.
No, because when I come in from the forge of the night, anyone can see me turn into it. But you never turn to it, Biddy.
I suppose I must catch it, like a cock.
I've got a secret, Biddy. I want to be a gentleman.
Oh, I wouldn't if I were you. I don't think it would answer.
Biddy, I have particular reasons for wanting to be a gentleman.
You know best, Pip, but don't you think you're happier at all?
I'm not at all happy as I am. I'm disgusted with my calling and with my life.
That's a pity.
I know if I could have settled down and been but half as fond of the forge as I was when I was little, then it would have been much better for me. You and I and Joe would have wanted nothing then. I should have been good enough for you, shouldn't I, Biddy?
Yes, I'm not over particular.
What would it signify to me, being coarse and common, if nobody had told me so?
That was neither a very true nor very polite thing to say. Who said it?
Beautiful young lady at Miss Havisham's. She's more beautiful than anybody ever was, and I admire her dreadfully, and I want to be a gentleman on her account.
Do you want to be a gentleman to spite her, or to gain her over?
I don't know.
Because if it's to spite her, I should think that you know best. That might be better and more independently done by caring nothing for her words. And if it is to gain her over, I should think that you know best that she is not worth gaining over. I'm glad of one thing, and that is that you felt you could give me your confidence, Pip.
I should always tell you everything, Biddy.
Till you're a gentleman.
You know I never shall be. If only I could get myself to fall in love with you. You don't mind my speaking so openly to such an old acquaintance.
Oh dear.
If only I could get myself to do it. That'd be the thing for me.
But you never know what you see.
It was the 4th year of my apprenticeship to Joe, and it was Saturday night at the bar. A tall, strange man peered over the settle.
From information I have received, there is a blacksmith here by the name of Joseph or Joe Gargery.
Gargery? Joseph Gargery? That's you, Joe.
And you have an apprentice commonly known as Pip.
Pip, that's you.
I wish to have a private conference.
Private, very, very good.
With you two. My name is Jaggers, and I am a lawyer in London. I am pretty well known. I have some unusual business to transact with this gentleman, but I commence by explaining it is not of my originating. If my advice had been asked, I would not be here. It was not asked, yet you see me here. My job as the confidential agent of another, I do no more, no less. Now, Joseph Gargery, I am the bearer of an offer to relieve you of this young fellow, your apprentice. You would not want anything for doing so.
Lord forbid wanting anything for standing in Pip's way.
Lord forbidding is pious, but not to the purpose. The question is, Do you want anything?
The answer's no.
Very well. Recollect the admission you have made and do not stand presently from it.
Who's it going to try?
I don't say anybody is. Now, Mr. Pip, I'm inclined to tell you that you will come into a handsome property, and that the present possessor of this property will take you from your present sphere of life, and you'll be brought up as a gentleman, in a way, a man of great expectations.
Miss Havisham is going to make my fortune on a grand scale.
Now, Pip, the rest of what I have to say, I say to you. It is the request of your benefactor that you must always bear the name of Pip. I hope this is, I dare say, not such an easy condition.
I have no objection, sir.
I should think not. Now I am further inclined to mention that it is the request of your benefactor that his identity is to remain a secret. I am further inclined to tell you that it is the intention of your benefactor to reveal his identity to you at first hand. I do not know when. It may be years hence. You are most positively prohibited from making any inquiry, allusion, or reference to the identity of this individual. The condition is laid down. I hope you do not have any objections to this, but if you have, now is the time to mention it. Speak out.
None, sir.
I should think not. Now, Mr. Pip, I have done with stipulations. There is a large sum of money waiting for you in my office, in earnest of your expectations. You should consider me your guardian. Oh, I tell you at once, if my services are not paid for, I shouldn't render them. My job is to alter you with your new position.
I've always longed for it, sir.
No matter what you have always longed for, Mr. Pip, if you long for it now, that's enough.
Farewell, monotonous acquaintances of my childhood.
Henceforth, I was for London.
And greatness. Biddy,
Yes, Pip?
I hope you'll not omit any opportunity of helping dear Joan a little.
How would you not?
Well, Biddy, you see, Joe's a dear good fellow. In fact, I think he's the dearest fellow that ever lived. But he's rather backward in some things, Biddy. For instance, in his learning and in his manners.
Oh, his manners. What do his manners do then?
My dear Biddy, they do very well here.
Oh, they do very well here.
Hear me out. If I were to remove Joe into a higher sphere, as I hope to do when I fully come into my property, it would hardly do him justice.
And don't you think he knows that?
What do you mean?
Have you ever considered he may be proud?
Proud?
Oh, there are many kinds of pride. Pride is not all of one kind.
Well, what are you stopping for?
Not all of one kind. He may be too proud to let anyone take him out of the place that he is competent to fill and fills well and with respect.
My dear Biddy, I'm very sorry to see this in you. You're envious, Biddy, and grudging. You're dissatisfied on account of my rise in fortune, and you can't help showing it.
If you have the heart to think so, say so.
If you have the heart to be so, you mean, Biddy, don't put it off upon me. It is a bad side of human nature. I did intend to ask you to use any opportunity you might have of helping dear Joan a little, but after this I ask you nothing.
Whether you scold me or approve of me, you may equally depend upon my trying to do all that lies in my power here at all times. And whatever opinion you take of me shall make no difference in my remembrance of you. Yet a gentleman should not be unjust neither.
Well, Pip?
I start for London tomorrow, Miss Havisham, and I thought you would kindly not mind my taking leave of you.
This is a gay figure, Pip.
I've come into such good fortune since I saw you last, Miss Havisham, and I'm so grateful for it, Miss Havisham.
I've seen Mr. Jaggers and I've heard. So, you leave for London tomorrow, right?
Yes, Miss Havisham.
And you're adopted by a rich person?
Yes, Miss Havisham.
Not named.
No, Miss Havisham.
And Mr. Jaggers is made your guardian?
Yes, Miss Havisham.
Well, you have a promising career ahead of you. Be good, deserve it, and abide by Mr. Jaggers' instructions. Goodbye, Pip. You will always keep the name Pip, you know.
Yes, Miss Havisham.
Goodbye, Pip.
to leave our village at 5 in the morning, carrying my little hand portmanteau. And I told Joe that I wished to walk away all alone.
We were all very low.
And none the higher for pretending to be experienced.
Then I went on. The village was very peaceful and very quiet. And the low mist was solemnly rising, as if to show me the world. I had been so innocent and little there, and beyond so known and great.
Heaven knows we need not be ashamed of our tears, for they are rain upon the blinding dust of earth, overlying our hard hearts.
I was better after I had cried than before. More sorry, more aware of my own ingratitude, more gentle. And so I went on. It is now too late and too far to go back. The low mist had solemnly risen now, and the world lay spread before me. While I was scared by the immensity of London, I thought it rather ugly, narrow, crooked and dirty. Is this Mr. Jagger's chambers?
Mr. Pick, Mr. Jagger's clerk. We are expecting you. Please take a seat.
I don't want to hear anything, I don't hear a word. As to the result, it's a toss-up. I told you from the start, it's a toss-up. Have you paid, Wemmick?
We made up the money this morning, sir.
I don't ask you when you made it up, where you made it up, or whether you made it up at all. Has Wemmick got it?
Yes. Yes,
Very
sir.
well. Then you have done all you have got to do. Say one word, one single word, and I shall throw up the case.
We thought, Mr. Jaggers.
That's what I told you not to do. You thought! I think for you, that's enough for you. I don't want you to find me. I know where to find you. Now you. Oh, Amelia, is it?
Yes, Mr. Jaggers.
And do you know that if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be here and couldn't be here?
Oh, yes, sir. Lord bless you, sir. We all know that.
Then why do you come here?
My bill, sir.
Now I tell you what, once and for all, if you don't know, your bill's in safe hands. I know it. And if you come here bothering about your bill, I'll make an example of both you and your bill and let them slip through my fingers. Now, have you paid, Wemmick?
Oh, yes, sir. Every farthing.
Very well. Then you have done all you have got to do.
But sir!
Say one word, one single word, and Mr. Wemmick shall give you your money back. Mr. Pip, I hope your journey wasn't too fatiguing.
He told me what my allowance was to be. A very liberal one.
Now, your credit is good. However, I should be able to check up on you if I find you out running the constable. Of course, you'll go wrong in your own way, but that's no fault of mine. You are to go to Barnard's Inn to meet a young Mr. Herbert Pocket. Wemmick will show you the way.
As I keep the cash, we shall most likely meet pretty often.
Mr. Pitt?
Mr. Pocket?
Pray come in. Allow me to lead the way. I'm rather bare here, but I hope to be able to make out tolerably well until Monday. I'm sure I should be happy to show London to you. As to our table, you won't find that fowl, I hope, with supplied from our cooking house here. And it is only right, I should add, at your expense, such being Mr. Jagger's directions. As to our lodgings, it's nothing splendid, as I have my own bread to earn, and my father hasn't anything to give me, and I shouldn't be willing to take it if he had. This is our sitting room, just such chairs and tables and carpet and so forth. But, dear me, I beg your pardon, I'm holding the fruit all this time. Lord bless me, you're the prowling boy.
And you are the pale young gentleman.
The idea of it's being you.
The idea of it's being you.
Well, that's all over now, I hope. And it would be magnanimous in you if you'll forgive me for having watched you about so. You had not come into your good fortune at the time.
No.
No, I heard it happened rather lately. And Mr. Jaggers is your guardian, I understand.
Yes.
You know he is Miss Havisham's man of business and solicitor and has her every confidence when no one else has.
I saw Mr. Jackson on the day of our combat, but never at any other time. And I believe he has no recollection of having ever seen me there.
I was rather on the lookout for good fortune then.
Indeed?
Yes, Miss Havisham had sent for me on a trial visit, and I suppose if I come out of it successfully I should have been provided for. Perhaps I should have been what you may call it to a seller.
What's that?
Affianced, betrothed, engaged, what's his name? Any word of that sort?
How did you bear your disappointment?
Oh, I didn't care for it much. She's a Tartar.
Miss Havisham?
I don't say no to that, but I meant Mrs. Stella. That girl's hard and haughty and capricious to the last degree, and was brought up by Miss Havisham to wreak revenge on all male sex.
What relation is she to Miss Havisham?
No, only adopted.
Why should she wreak revenge on all male sex?
Lord Pip, don't you know?
No.
Dear me, it's quite a story. Miss Havisham, you must know, was a spoiled child. Her mother died when she was a baby, and her father denied her nothing. Her father was a country gentleman, down in your part of the world, and was a brewer. Well, Mr. Havisham was very rich and very proud, so was his daughter.
Was Miss Havisham an only child?
Indeed, and Miss Havisham was now an heiress, and you may suppose was looked after a great match. Now I come to the cruel part of the story. There appeared upon the scene, say at the races, or public balls, or anywhere else you like, a certain man, who made love to Miss Havisham. I never saw him, but this happened 5 and 20 years ago, before you and I were Pip. Well, this man pursued Miss Havisham closely, and professed to be devoted to her, and she passionately loved him. There's no doubt that she perfectly idolised him. And she practised on her affection in that systematic way that he got great sums of money from her, as she was too haughty and too much in love to be advised by any. The marriage day came, the wedding dresses were bought, the wedding guests were invited, and the bridal cake was ordered. The day came, but not the bride's groom. He wrote her a letter.
Did she receive when she was dressing at 20 minutes to 9?
At the hour and the minute, at which she then stopped all the clocks. What was in it? Farther than that, it most heartlessly broke the marriage off. I can't tell you because I don't know. She has never since looked upon the light of day.
Is that all the story?
All that I know of it.
What became of the man?
He fell deeper into shame and degradation, if there can be any deeper, and ruin.
Is he alive now?
I don't know.
You said that Estella was not related to Miss Havisham, but adopted. When adopted?
There has always been an Estella since I've heard of Miss Havisham. And now, Pip, I know no more. All that I know about Miss Havisham, you know.
And all that I know, you know.
I fully believe it.
We were very gay and sociable.
And after we paused the conversation, what he was.
I'm a capitalist, an insurer of ships in the city. I shall not rest satisfied merely employing my capital in insuring ships. I shall buy up some good life assurance and cut into that direction. I shall also do a little in the mining way. I think I shall trade to the East Indies for silks, shawls, spices, dyes, drugs, and precious woods. It's an interesting trade.
And the profits are large?
Tremendous. I think I shall also trade to the West Indies for sugar, tobacco, and rum.
You want a good many ships.
Perfect fleet. I haven't begun insuring yet. I am looking about me. Yes, I am in a counting house and looking about me.
Is a counting house profitable?
Do you mean to the young fellow who's in it?
Yes, to you.
Why, no, not to me, not directly profitable. That is, I can't get anything from it. And I have to keep myself. But the thing is, that look about you, that's the grand thing. You're in a counting house, you know, and that look about you.
Herbert and I got on fast with the rest of my acquaintance in London. Bentley Drummond.
The next heir but one to a baronetcy.
He was idle, proud, niggardly reserved.
And suspicious.
Startup.
Spoilt by a weak mother, and kept at home when he should have stayed at school.
I soon acquired expensive habits, and spent an amount of money that in a few short months I should deem almost fabulous.
Dine with me tonight, Pip, and bring your friend.
Who is this Jaggers anyways?
Lord knows. Some dreary, dried up stick of a lawyer, I suppose.
Dinner went off gaily. Conversation soon turned on our rowing feats.
Drummel informed our host that as to skill he was more than our master, and as to strength he could scatter us like chaff.
Mr. Jaggers wound up a short pitch of ferocity.
And he fell to baring his arm to show how muscular it was.
And we all fell to bearing and spanning in our arms in a most ridiculous fashion.
Why, if you want to see power, I'll show you a wrist. Molly, let them see your wrist.
Master, no.
Molly, let them see both your wrists.
Master, please.
There's power here that no man has ever seen before. It's extraordinary. In my time I've seen many wrists, but none such like these. You can go now, Molly. You have been admired. Gentlemen, when it reaches 9:30, we must depart. Pray make the use best of your time. I'm glad to see you all. Mr. Drummle, I drink to you.
In a sulky triumph, Drummle showed his morose appreciation of the rest of us in a more and more offensive degree, until it became downright intolerable.
It became particularly hot.
Upon some boorish sneer of his to the effect.
We were too free of our money.
That comes with a bad grace from you, Drummle, since Startop lent you money but a week ago.
Well, I'll be paid.
I don't mean to imply that you won't, but it might make you hold your tongue about us and our money, I should think.
You should think! Oh, Lord.
I dare say that you wouldn't lend any one of us any money if we wanted it.
You are right. I wouldn't lend one of you a sixpence. I wouldn't lend anyone a sixpence.
Rather mean to borrow under those circumstances, I should say.
You should say. Oh, Lord.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry to announce it is 9:30.
On this hint, we all rose to depart.
I am extremely sorry, sir, that anything disagreeable should have come up.
Pooh! It's nothing. I like that Drummle, though.
I'm glad you like him, sir, but I don't.
No, don't have too much to do with him. Don't have too much to do with anyone. He's a promising fellow, but if I were a fortune teller... But I'm not a fortune teller. You know what I am, don't you, Pip? Good night, Pip.
A month or so later, I received a letter from Biddy.
My dear Mr. Pitt, I write this by request of Mr. Gargery, or to let you know that he is going to London and would be glad, if agreeable, to be allowed to see you. Your poor sister is much the same as when you left. We talk about you in the kitchen every night, wondering what you are saying and doing. No more, dear Mr. Pitt, from your ever obliged and most affectionate servant, Biddy. P.S. He wishes me most particular to write what love.
Joe, how are you, Joe? Pip, how are you, Pip? Joe, it's so wonderful to see you. Please, give me your hat.
Which you're that grove, and that swell, and that gentle folk, to be sure you are an honour to your king and country.
And you, Joe, you look wonderfully well.
Thank God, I'm equal to most. And your sister, she's no worse than she were. Biddy, she's ever right and ready.
Joe, this is my friend Herbert.
Your servant, sir?
Do you take tea or coffee, Mr. Gargery?
Thank you, sir. I'll have whichever is most agreeable to yourself.
What do you say to coffee?
Thank you, sir. Since you're so kind as to make the choice of coffee, I shan't run contrary to your own opinions. But don't you never find it a little eating?
Say tea then. When did you come to town, Mr. Gargery?
Were it yesterday afternoon? No, it were not. Yes, it were. Yes, it were yesterday afternoon.
I was heartily glad when how thou left us for the city.
Us two being alone now, sir. Indeed, Joe. Us two being alone now, and me having the ability and intentions to stay not many minutes more, I shall conclude, leastways begin, to mention what have led to me having the present honour. I were at Bargeman's the other night, and up in his shake-up come Pumblechook, and his words were, Joseph, Miss Havisham, she wishes to speak to you.
Pray, continue.
The next day, I uncleaned myself, and I saw Miss Havisham, and her expression air as following. Mr. Gargery, you are in correspondence with Mr. Pitt. Having had a letter from you, are able to say I am. Would you tell him then, she said, that which Estella has come back, and would be glad to speak with him.
I secured my place by tomorrow's coach. unlocking the gates. The last person I should have expected to see at Miss Havisham's door. Audit.
Ah, young master. There's more changes than yours, but come in. Come in, it's opposed to my orders to have the gate open. Yes, here I am.
How did you come here?
I come here on my legs.
You here for good?
I'm here from young master, I suppose.
How long ago did you get here?
Come here some time since you left.
I should have told you that, Orlick.
Ah, but then you've got to be a scholar.
I tapped in already at the door of Miss Havisham's room.
How do you do that? You kiss my hand as if I were a queen.
I heard, Miss Havisham, that you were so kind as to send for me, and I came directly. Stella, I am so happy. I did not recognize you.
Do you find her much changed, Pip?
Much changed.
Is he changed, Estella?
Very much.
Less coarse and common?
Undoubtedly.
Estella treated me as a boy and lured me on.
I must have been a singular little creature to hide and see that fight that day. But I did, and I enjoyed it very much.
You rewarded me very much.
Did I? I remember I entertained a great objection to your adversary because I took it ill that he should be brought here to pester me with his company.
You and I are great friends now.
Are you?
Remember making me cry that day?
No, I don't remember. How do you thrive with Herbert?
I lived quite pleasantly there, at least.
At least?
As pleasantly as I could. Anywhere away from you.
You silly boy, how can you speak such nonsense? You must know I have no heart.
I take the liberty of doubting that.
Oh, I have a heart to be stabbed or shot in, I have no doubt. And of course, if it ceases to beat, I cease to be. But you know what I mean. I have no sympathy. Sentiments, nonsense. I'm serious. If we are to be thrown much together, you better believe it at once. I'm to come to London. I'm going to live at a great expense with a lady who has the power, or says she has, of taking me about and introducing me and showing people to me and showing me to people.
I hope I shall see you sometime.
Oh yes, you are to see me, Pip. Whenever you think proper.
It was the first time she had ever called me by my name.
Of course she did so purposely.
I knew that I should treasure it up.
Is she beautiful, graceful, well grown? Do you admire her?
Everybody must who sees her, Miss Havisham.
Love her, love her, love her. How does she use you? If she wounds you, love her. If she favours you, love her, love her. Hear me, Pip. I adopted her to be loved. I bred her and educated her to be loved. I developed her into what she is that she might be loved. I'll tell you what real love is. It is blind devotion, unquestioning self-humiliation, utter submission, trust and belief against the whole world and against yourself, giving up your whole heart and soul to the smiter, as I did.
Honoured Sir, I beg to inform you that your dear sister, Mrs. Joseph Gardley, has departed this life on Monday last at 20 minutes past 6 in the evening, and that your attendance is requested for the interment on Monday next at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Biddy, I think you ought to have written to me about these sad matters.
Do you, Mr. Pip? I should have written if I had thought that.
Oh, don't you think I mean to be unkind, Biddy, when I say that I think you ought to have thought that?
Do you, Mr. Pip?
I suppose it will be difficult for you to remain here now, Biddy dear.
Oh, I can't do so, Mr. Pip. I've been speaking to Miss Hubble and I'm going to her tomorrow. I hope we can take some care of Mr. Gardry together until he settles down.
Biddy, we must often speak these things. Of course, I will be down here often. I can't leave poor Joe alone. Biddy, don't you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Pip.
Not to mention you're calling me Mr. Pip, which appears to me to be in bad taste, Biddy. What do you mean?
What do I mean?
Biddy, I must request to know what you mean by this.
By this?
Now don't echo, Biddy. You used not to echo. I made a remark respecting my coming down here often to see poor Joe, which you received with a marked silence. Have the goodness, Biddy, to tell me why.
I Are you quite sure then that you will come and see London?
Oh dear me, this really is a very bad side of human nature. Say no more if you please. This shocks me very much.
I saw Stella often in London. There were picnics, parties, operas, plays, and balls.
Pip, will you never take warning?
Of what?
Of me.
Warning not to be attracted by you, do you mean, Stella?
Do I mean? If you don't know what I mean, then you are blind.
There were all sorts of pleasures through which I pursued her. They were all miseries to me. I had not 1 hour's happiness in her society.
The right sort of man never does fill the post of trust. Thank you, Pip. I'll have our friend paid off immediately.
Oh no, please don't do that.
No, Mr. Pip. I shall call you Mr. Pip today. Congratulations, Mr. Pip. Now, I must ask you a question or two.
If you please, sir.
What do you suppose you are living at the rate of?
At the rate of, sir?
At the rate of?
I am quite unable to answer you.
Now, I've asked you a question. Have you a question to ask me?
Is my benefactor to be made known of to me today?
No, ask another.
Have I anything to receive, sir?
Ah, I thought we should come to it. Now, attend if you please, Mr. Pip. You are in debt, of course.
I am afraid I must say yes, sir.
You are afraid you must say yes because you don't know. And if you did know, you wouldn't tell me why. Yes, my good friend, I know you better than you know yourself. Now, take this in your hands and tell me what it is.
This is a banknote, sir. For £500, sir.
This is a banknote for £500. And an amply sufficient amount of money too, don't you think?
Could I do otherwise?
Ah, but answer the question.
Undoubtedly.
Undoubtedly, you consider it a large sum of money. Amply sufficient in regards to your expectations. That, Mr. Pip, is a present from me to you today. You are to live off of that until the donor of the whole appears. Come, I'll be plain with you. You must not ask when the donor of the whole will appear, for when he does, and it will settle his own affairs, my part in this will cease, and I shall not need to know any more. That is all I have to say. Good day to you, Mr. Pip.
Mr. Wennick, I want some advice. I am very desirous to serve a friend. This friend is trying to get on in a commercial life, but hasn't any money, and finds it disheartening and discouraging to find a start. I wondered if I could help him to this start.
With money down?
With some money down, and have some anticipation of my expectations.
Mr. Pip, I should like just to run over with you, on my fingers, if you please, the names of various bridges up as high as Chelsea Reach. Let's see, there's London 1, Southwark 2, Blackfriars 3, Waterloo 4, Westminster 5 and Vauxhall 6. There's as many as 6, you see, to choose from.
I'm not sure I understand you.
Choose your bridge, Mr. Pip, and take a walk upon your bridge, and pitch your money into the Thames, over the centre arc of your bridge, and you know the end of it. Serve your friend with it, and you may know the end of it too, but it is a less pleasant and profitable end.
This is very discouraging.
Meant to be so.
So it is your opinion that a man should never
invest portable property in a friend? Certainly, he should not. Unless he wants to get rid of the friend, then the question becomes how much portable property it may be worth to get rid of him.
And that is your deliberate opinion?
That is my deliberate opinion in this office.
And outside this office?
Well, you know, Mr. Pitt, I must tell you, this is devilish good of you.
Say you'll help me to be good then.
Of course, this is hardly wise, but I will help you.
The time's come round where Miss Havisham wishes to have me stay on Saturdays. You'll take me there and bring me back if you will. Can you take me?
Can I take you, Estella?
It happened on the occasion of this visit that some sharp words arose between Estella and Miss Havisham. It was the first time I had seen the two opposed.
I'm very sorry.
What? Are you tired of me?
Only a little tired of myself.
Speak the truth, you ingrate. You are tired of me, you stock and stone, you cold, cold heart.
What? Do you reproach me for being cold? You?
Are you not?
You should know I am what you have made me. Take all the praise, take all the blame, take all the success, take all the failure. In short, take me.
Oh, look at her, look at her. Look at her, so hard and thankless on the hearth where she was reared, where I took her to this wretched breast when it was first bleeding from its stabs, and where I've lavished years of tenderness upon her.
At least I was no party to the compact, for if I could walk and speak when it was made, it was as much as I could do. But what would you have? You've been very good to me, and I owe everything to you. What would you have?
Love.
You haven't.
I have not.
Mother, by adoption, I've said that I owe everything to you. All I possess is freely yours. Everything you have given me is at your command has been come again. Beyond that, I have nothing. And if you ask me to give you what you never gave me, my gratitude and duty cannot do impossibilities.
Did I never give her love? Did I never give her a burning love? So proud, so proud.
You taught me to be proud. You praised me when I learnt my lessons. I who sat on the hearth in the little stool that is now beside your chair, learning your lessons, looking into your face when your face was strange and frightened me.
So hard, so hard.
Who taught me to be hard? Who praised me when I was cold as ice?
But to be proud and hard to me, Estella, 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 to be proud and hard to me.
So I am to be taken as I have been made. The success is not mine, the failure is not mine, but the two together make me.
When I left, Miss Havisham's old grey hair was adrift upon the ground. It was a miserable sight to see. At a certain assembly ball,
Where Estella had outshone all other beauties, Drummle hung about her.
Are you tired, Estella?
Rather, Pitt,
You should be.
but I served my letter to Miss Havisham to write.
Counting tonight's triumph, surely a very poor one, Estella.
What do you mean? I didn't know there had been any trial.
Estella. Do you look at that Drummle over there?
Why should I look at him?
He's been hovering about you all night.
Moths and all sorts of ugly creatures hover about a lighted candle. Can the candle help it?
No, but cannot the Estella help it?
Well, perhaps. Yes. Anything you like.
No, it makes me wretched that you should encourage a man so generally despised as Drummle. You do know he is despised.
Well,
You do know he has nothing to recommend him but money and a ridiculous role of addle-headed predecessor, now don't you?
well.
Oh, don't be so proud, Estella, and so inflexible.
Calls me proud and inflexible in this breath, and in his last breath reproaches me.
I've seen you give him looks and smiles this night. Such you never give to me.
Do you want me then to deceive and entrap you?
Do you deceive and entrap Drummle?
Yes, and many others. All of them but you.
it was stormy and I was alone in our lodging.
I was 23 years of age.
Not another word did I hear to enlighten me on the subject of my expectations.
There's someone down there, is there not?
Yes.
What floor do you want?
The top, Mr. Pitt.
That is my name. Is there nothing the matter?
Nothing the matter.
Would you like to come in?
Yes, I wish to come in, Master.
Pray, what is your business?
My business? Ah, yes. I will explain my business, by your leave.
What do you mean?
It's disappointing to a man. After I looked so forward and gone so distant. But you're not to blame for that. Neither of us is to blame for that. I'll speak in half a minute. Give me half a minute. There's no one nigh, is there?
Why do you, a stranger coming into my rooms at this time of the night, ask that question?
You're a gay one. I'm glad you've got a gay one.
I knew him. I couldn't recall a single feature, but I knew him. I couldn't have known my convict more distinctly than now, as he sat in the chair before the fire.
You acted noble, my boy. Noble, Pip. I never forgot it.
Stay. Keep off. If you're grateful for me for what I did when I was a child, I hope you have shown your gratitude by mending your way of life. If you have come here to thank me, it was not necessary. Still, however, there must be some good feeling that has brought you here, and I will not repulse you, but surely you must know that I...
You was saying that surely I must understand. But what is it surely that I must understand?
I cannot wish to renew that chance intercourse of long ago under these different circumstances. I am glad to hope that you have repented and recovered yourself. I am glad to tell you so, and I am glad that thinking I deserve to be thanked you have come to thank me. It was not necessary. Our ways are different ways, nonetheless. You look weary and wet. Will you drink something before you go?
I think I will drink to that. I thank you. Before I go.
I hope you will not think I spoke harshly to you just now. I had no intention of doing so. I wish you well and happy. How are you living?
I've been a chick farmer, stock breeder, other trades beside, away in the new world. Many 1,000 miles strong in water off from this.
I hope you have done well.
I hope to hear you say so, said dear boy, since we were out on the lonesome marshes.
I am glad to hear so.
Might I ask how you have done well since we were alone on the Shivering Marshes?
I have been chosen to succeed some property.
Might a mere woman ask what property?
I don't know.
And might a mere woman ask whose property?
I don't know. Now, if you'll excuse me.
Could I make a guess? I wonder at your income. Since you come of age, as the first figure now? 5? And concerning a guardian, which there ought to be a guardian of sorts, since you was a minor, some lawyer, maybe. And as to the first letter of the name of that lawyer, might it be J? And put it to the employer of that lawyer, whose name begins with J. Might it be Jaggers? Yes, Pip, dear boy, I've made a gentleman of you. It was me what has done it. I swore that if I earned a guinea should go to you. And I swore afterwards, as ever as I speculated, that if I were to get rich, you should get rich. I worked hard so that you'd be above work. I lived rough so that you could live smooth. I am your second father, and you're a son to me, more than any other son. But it was me, and you never would have guessed it, would you?
Oh no, never.
Well, it was me. Never a soul in it other than me and Mr. Jaggers.
Was there no one else?
No one else? And who should there be? And dear boy, how good looking you've grown. There's bright eyes in there. There's bright eyes somewhere. What your love got thoughts on? Estella. Then she shall be yourn, dear boy. If money can buy such. For years I've held a steady afore in my mind that I would make myself known to him on his own ground. But it warn't easy, Pip. For the harder it was, the stronger I held. For my mind firm made up.
Would you need somewhere to sleep for the night?
Yes, for I've been sea-washed and sea-tossed for months and months.
My friend and companion is absent. Have his room.
He won't be back tomorrow, will he?
No, not tomorrow.
For, dear boy, caution is necessary.
How do you mean caution?
Well, by God, it's death.
What's death?
I was sent for life. It's death to be brought back. If surely I was to be choked, I was to be hanged.
I don't even know what name to call him.
Call me uncle, dear boy.
No, what is your name?
Magwitch. Christened Abel. And this is the real, genuine gentleman what I've made. It does me fur good to look at you, Pip. I see my gentleman in the mire of the streets, without mud on his boots. Pip, dear boy, you must have horses. Horses to ride, and horses to drive. And horses for your servants to ride and drive as well.
Mighty Magwitch. I want to know what is to be done, how you are to be kept out of trouble, how long you will remain.
How long? I'm not going back.
Now, Pip, be careful.
I will, sir.
Don't commit yourself to anyone. I am not curious.
I merely want Mr. Jaggers to assure myself what I've been told is true.
Did you say told? Told would seem to imply you have had verbal communication. You can't have verbal communication with someone in New South Wales.
I will say informed, sir.
Very good.
I have been informed by a man named Abel Magwitch of New South Wales that he is the benefactor so long unknown to me.
This is the man in New South Wales.
Yes, and only he?
And only he?
I am not so unreasonable, sir, as to think you at all responsible for my mistakes, but I always thought it was Miss Havisham.
I have told you from the start I am not responsible for that.
And yet it looks so like it, sir.
Not a particle of evidence. Don't take anything on how it looks. Take everything on evidence.
I have no more to say, sir.
Mr. Mabel Ackridge of New South Wales, having finally disclosed his identity, had the goodness to mention the particulars of this long account, for there is a balance remaining. Good day to you, Pip.
To avoid the suspicion of being watched.
When the mind is conscious of danger in that regard, I could not persuade myself that any of the people within sight cared about my movements. I spoke to the watchman.
Did you see anyone come in late last night?
Well, sir, not being so bad, I'm coming for you, I'm coming out my gate. I don't call somebody another since about 11 o'clock when a stranger asked you.
My uncle, yes.
You know him, sir?
Yes,
yes. Likewise the person with him.
Person with him?
I assume the person was with him since he was following me very closely.
What sort of person?
Difficult to say, sir. Dark colored clothes, the black coat.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
At length, one evening, I heard the welcome footsteps of Herbert on the stair.
Quiet.
Good, my dear fellow, how are you? And again, how are you? And again, how are you? I seem to have gone a 12-month. Why, so I must have, for you've grown quite thin and pale. Pip, my... Hello? I beg your pardon.
Herbert, something very strange is happening. This is a visitor of mine.
In vain should I describe the astonishment and disquiet Herbert to be sat before the fire.
Pip and Pip's comrade. I will tell you my life story, but not like a song or a storybook, but in one little mouthful of English. In jail and out of jail. In jail and out of jail. In jail and out of jail. There, you've got it. I first became aware of myself down in Essex, a thieving turnips for a living. I was very cold and abandoned. Me being the soft little boy that I was, until I was abandoned by my mother and father. But I got the name of being hardened.
This is a terrible hardened one. Could be sent to live in jail, this boy.
But one day, I found myself at the Epsom races. It was over a matter of 20 years ago, when I got equipped with a man. His name was Compasson.
Compasson? Did you say Compasson?
That's the woman's name, and that's the man, dear boy, you see me beaten down in the marshes. He was a proper gentleman, this Compasson. He went to public boarding school and had learning. He was a smooth one to talk and a dab hand with the gentlefolk. He looks at me, and I look at him very noticing.
To judge from appearances, you're out of luck.
Yes, master. I've never really been in it much.
Luck changes. Perhaps yours is going to change.
I hope it may be so. There's room.
What are you going to do?
Eat and drink, if you'll find the materials. Whatever that Compasson said, I did. And he got me in such nets as to make me his slave. But one day we both got nipped for putting stolen notes into circulation.
Is Compasson alive now?
Ah, he's not, as I've heard. But if he is, be sure I've never heard no more of him.
No separation.
My lord and gentlemen, here for you stand side by side two persons. One, the younger, well brought up, who will be spoken to as such. One, the elder, ill brought up, who will be spoken to as such. One, the younger, seldom if ever seen in these transactions and only suspected. The other, the elder, always seen in them and always with his guilt brought home. Can you doubt which is much the worst one?
And he got taken for 7 years, and me 14. But that's only because the judge thought that I was likely to come to worse.
So, Compasson is alive now.
Let's hope that he isn't, but if he is, we're sure to be careful of him.
My dear fellow, Compasson is the man who professed to be Miss Havisham's lover.
Good heavens, Herbert, is this true? What is to be done?
My poor dear Pip, I'm too stunned to think.
Mac, is intent upon horses and carriages and lavish appearances of all kinds. Oh, was there ever such a fate?
My poor dear Pip.
Yet, I am afraid he is attached to me, deeply attached to me. Oh, what is to be done?
Can't accept any more money from him.
How can I think of him, look at him? Oh, he is very attached to me, very, very attached. Stopping short here, think of what I owe him already. I am very heavily in debt, very, very heavily in debt for me, and I am fit for nothing.
Well, don't say fit for nothing.
What am I fit for, Herbert? What is to be done?
The first main thing to be done is to get him out of England.
Yes. You are right, and I must do it. But before I can go abroad, I first need to see Estella and Havisham.
I set off by the early morning coach who should come out of the house.
Toothpick in hand.
But Bentley Drummle.
stay here long?
Can't say. Do you?
Can't say.
I'm going out for a ride. I mean to explore these marshes for amusement. Out of the way villages there, they tell me. Curious little public houses and smithies and that. Good day to you.
What wind blows you here, Pip?
It will not surprise you, it will not displease you, Miss Havisham. I am as unhappy now as you intended me to be. I have found out who my patron was. It is not a fortunate discovery, and is not one that is ever likely to enrich me in reputation, fortune, station, anything. There are reasons why I must say no more of this. It is not my secret, but another's.
Not your secret, but another's. Well,
When I first was brought here, when I belonged to the village over yonder, the one that I wish I had never left, I suppose I did so as another chance boy might have done, as a sort of servant, to gratify a whim and to be paid for it.
aye, you did.
And that Mr. Jaggers...
Mr. Jaggers knew nothing of it. Him being my lawyer and him being the lawyer of your patron is a coincidence.
But when I fell into the mistake I have so long remained in, at least you lured me on.
Yes, I let you go on.
Was that kind?
Who am I, for God's sake, to be kind? Well, what else?
There is something, Miss Havisham. If you would spare the money to do my friend Herbert a lasting service in life, but from the nature of which must be done without his knowledge, I could show you how.
Why must it be done without his knowledge?
Because I began the service more than 2 years ago without his knowledge, and I do not wish to be betrayed.
Well, I will think about it. What else?
Stella. You know I love you. I understood that Miss Havisham meant us for one another. I know I have no hope that I shall ever call you mine. I am ignorant of what may become of me very soon, how poor I may be or where I may go. Still I love you. I have loved you ever since I first came to this house. It would have been cruel of Miss Havisham to practice on the susceptibility of a poor young boy, and to torture me through all these years with a faint hope of marrying me. She had reflected on the gravity of what she did, but I think she did not. In the endurance of her own trial, she forgot mine, Stella.
There are sentiments, fancies, which I'm not able to comprehend. When you say you love me, I know what you mean as a form of words, but nothing more. You address nothing in my breast, you touch nothing there. I've tried to warn you of this now, have I not?
Yes.
Yes, but you would not be warned. You thought I did not mean it.
I thought and hoped you could not mean it, Stella. You, so young, untried, beautiful. Surely it is not in your nature.
It is in my nature. It is in the nature formed within me. I make a great difference between you and all other people. I can do no more.
Is it not true that Bentley Drummond is in town here and pursuing you?
It's quite true.
That
He's here, just now.
That you encourage him and ride out with him and dine with him this very night?
Quite true.
You cannot love him, Estella.
Do you still think I do not mean what I say?
You would never marry him, Estella.
Why not tell you the truth? I'm going to be married to him.
Dearest Estella, do not let Miss Havisham lead you into this fatal step. Put me aside forever. Bestow yourself on some worthier person than Drummond.
I'm going to be married to him. The preparations for my marriage are making, and I shall be married soon. Why do you speak of my mother by adoption? It is in my own act.
Your own act? To fling yourself away upon a brute?
On whom shall I fling myself away? I'm tired of the life I've led, which has very few chances for me, say no more. We shall never learn to understand each other.
Such a mean brute. Such a stupid brute.
Don't be afraid of my being a blessing to him. Come, here is my hand. Do we part in this, you visionary boy or man?
How could I see you, Bentley Drummond's wife?
Nonsense, nonsense. This will pass in no time.
Never, Estella.
You will get me out of your thoughts in a week.
Out of my thoughts. You're part of my existence. Part of myself. Oh, God bless you. God forgive you.
When I went out of the gate, the light of day seemed of darker colour.
I struck off to walk all the way to London.
Messenger said that would be great if you could read it under the light of my lamp.
Please read this here.
It's writing.
Don't go home.
Turning from the temple, I made the best of my way to Fleet Street.
Mr. Pip, how glad I am to see you. You did not go home.
No, I got your note.
I heard at Newgate by chance yesterday morning that your lodgings have been watched and might be watched again.
Mr. Wemmick, may I ask you a question? You need only nod in reply. You have heard of a man of bad character named Compson. Is he alive? Is he in London?
After hearing what I heard, I went to your lodgings to find you. Not finding you, I went to find Mr. Herbert.
And whom you found?
And whom I found. He mentioned to me that he is courting a young lady in a house down on the river between Limehouse and Greenwich. You are acquainted with the young lady, most probably?
Not personally.
Now, Mr. Herbert put it to me. What did I think of that as a temporary tenement for your uncle? Now, I thought very well of it. After a while, if you should like to slip him aboard a foreign packet, there he is ready. Mr. Pip, I should warn you. It is not safe at present to break cover. Lie close, wait till things slacken, wait for my signal.
We're both good watermen, Pip and I. I could take them out ourselves when the right time comes. Do it 20 or 50 times and there's nothing special in doing it the 21st or 51st. I began to go as for training, sometimes alone, sometimes with Herbert.
I was often out in the cold rain and sleet, but nobody took much notice of me, other than a few times.
The weeks passed without ringing. We waited for Wemmick, but he made no sign.
One afternoon, late in the month of February, I
came ashore at the wharf of dusk.
It was cold and raw evening. I thought I would dine and afterwards I would go to the play. I was aware
that Mr. Wopsle was out
Mr. Wopsle was going to give his Danish prince.
To be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles.
There was something so remarkable in the increasing glare of Mr. Wopsle's eye. He seemed to be staring at me as if lost in amazement. I found him later that evening in his dressing room.
Mr. Wopsle, how do you do? I saw that you saw me.
Saw you, Mr. Pip? Why, of course I saw you. But who else was there?
Who else?
It is the strangest thing, and yet I could almost swear to him. I had a ridiculous fancy that he must be with you, Mr. Pip, until I saw that you were quite unaware of him, sitting behind you there like a ghost. I dare say you wonder at me, Mr. Pip. Indeed, I see you do. But it is so very strange. You'll hardly believe what I'm going to tell you. I would hardly believe it myself if you told me.
Indeed?
No, indeed, Mr. Pip. You remember in old times a certain Christmas day where I dined at Gargery's and you were quite a child, and some soldiers came to the door to get a pair of handcuffs mended.
I follow you, sir.
And you remember that they were on a chase after 2 convicts, and that we joined in it, and Gargery took you on his back and I took the lead, and you kept up with me as well as you could.
I follow you, sir.
And we came upon the 2 in a ditch, and there was 2 of them, an older one and a younger one, and there was a scuffle between them.
I see them both before me.
And the soldiers lighted torches, and they put the 2 in the centre, and we went on to see the last of them over the black marshes with the torchlight shining on their faces.
I follow you very closely.
Well, Mr. Pip, one of those two convicts has sat behind you tonight.
Which of the two do you suppose you saw?
The younger one, he was looking at you.
Dine with me tonight, Pip. Wemmick's coming. Our friend Mr. Bentley Trouble has played his cards and has won the pool. Ha! He is a promising fellow in his own way, but he cannot have it his own way. Why, if he turns to and beats her, then...
Surely you do not think he is scoundrel enough for that, Mr. Jones?
No, Pip, I am putting a case. Our friend Mr. Bentley Trouble neither beats nor cringes. Ask Wemmick his opinion.
Beats or cringes, Mr. Jaggers?
Now, Molly! 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 How slow you are today!
A certain look in her eye attracted my attention.
What's the matter, Pip?
Oh no, nothing, only the subject we were speaking of was rather painful to me.
Surely I've seen such eyes and such hands on a memorable occasion very lately.
Thank you, Molly.
I felt absolutely certain that this woman was Estella's mother. We took our leave early.
Mr. Wemmick, do you remember telling me when I first came to the house to notice the house?
Yes, sir.
I wish you would tell me her story.
Well, I don't know her story. That is, I don't know all of it. I'll tell you. We are in our private and personal capacities, of course.
Of course.
20 years ago today, that woman Molly was tried at the Old Bailey for murder. She had been married very young to a tramping man and was a perfect fury to the point of jealousy. Molly suspected another woman with her husband. Her alleged victim was found murdered, held by the throat at last and choked. It looked a desperate case to Molly, and to prove her guilt, it was said in court, so great was her jealousy that she had destroyed her own child from her tramping husband, some 3 years old, to revenge herself upon him. But Mr. Jaggers was for her and worked the case in the most astonishing. In fact, it was said to have almost made him.
You say these are marks of fingernails and not brambles, and I show you the brambles. You then say these are marks of brambles and set up the hypothesis that she destroyed her child. Now, you must deal with the consequences of that hypothesis. How do we know that when she did destroy her child, she clinged to her hands and scratched her fingers with said fingernails? What then? Are we merely charging her for the destruction of her own daughter? Why don't you?
To sum up, sir, Mr. Jaggers was all too many for the jury, and they gave in.
And the woman was acquitted. Has she been in Jaggers' service ever since?
Yes.
Thank you, Wemmick. Mr. Jaggers gave me your note, and I have lost no time.
Thank you, thank you. I wanted to pursue something you mentioned when you were last here, to show you that I'm not all stone. But perhaps you can never believe there's anything human left in my heart. You said, speaking for your friend, you could tell me how to do something useful and good. Something you would like done, is it not?
Something I would like done very much.
What is it? And how much money is wanted for the purchase?
£900.
If I give you the money for this purpose, you will keep my secret as you have kept your own?
Quite as faithfully.
And your mind will be more at rest?
Much more at rest.
Are you very unhappy now?
Miss Havisham, I am not at all happy as I am, but I have other causes of despite that any you know of.
Is it noble in you to tell me you have other causes of unhappiness? Is it true?
Too true.
Can I only serve you by serving your friend? Regarding that is done, is there nothing I can do for you?
Miss Havisham, I thank you for the question. I thank you even more for the tone of the question, but there is nothing.
Are you still on friendly terms with Mr. Jaggers?
Quite. I dined with him last night.
This is an authority to him, to lay your irresponsible discretion down for your friend. I keep no money here, but if you would rather Mr. Jaggers knew nothing of the matter, I will send it to you.
Thank you, Miss Havisham. I have not the least objection of receiving it from him.
My name is on the first leaf. If you could ever write under it, I forgive her, though even so long after my broken heart is dust, pray do it.
Oh, Miss Havisham, I can do it now. There have been sore mistakes in my life. It's been a blind and thankless one. And I want forgiveness and direction far too much to be bitter with you.
What have I done? What have I done?
If you mean, Miss Havisham, what have you done to injure me? Let me answer. Very little. I should have loved her under any circumstances. Is she married?
Yes. What have I done? Until you spoke to me the other day, and until I saw in you a looking glass that showed me what I once felt myself, I didn't know what I had done. What have I done? What have I done?
You may dismiss me from your mind. Stella is a different case. If you can undo any scrap of what you've done, better to do that than to bemoan the past through 100 years.
Yes, I know it, Pip, but my dear, believe me, when she was first brought to me, I meant to save her from a misery like my own. At first I meant no more.
Well, I hope so.
But as she grew and promised to be very beautiful, I gradually did worse. And with my teachings, and with my praise, and with my jewels, and with this figure of myself always before her, wanting to back and point my lessons, I stole away her heart and put ice in its place.
Better to have left her a natural heart, even to be bruised or broken.
If you knew more about my past, you'd have a better understanding of me and more compassion for me.
Miss Havisham, I believe I do know your story. It has inspired me with great commiseration. Whose child was Stella's? You don't know? But Mr. Jaggers brought her here, or sent her here.
Brought her here.
I wish you would tell me how that came about.
I've been shut up in these rooms a long time. I don't know how long, you know what time the clocks keep here. When I told him I wanted a little girl to rear and love and to save from my fate. I had first seen him when I sent for him to lay this place waste for me after I'd read about him in the newspapers before I and the world parted. He told me he would look about him for such an orphan child. One night he brought her here asleep and I called her Estella.
Would you tell me her age then?
2 or 3. She herself was nothing, but she was left an orphan and I adopted her. Go, Pip.
Twilight was closing in when I went downstairs into the natural air. I had the presentiment I should never see the Satter's house again. I made my way to the ruined garden.
I went all around it, round by the corner where Herbert and I had fought our battle.
Round where the paths where Estella and I had walked. So cold, so lonely, so dreary all. Before leaving, I looked into the room where I left my fairy godmother.
And I saw that she had moved nearer to the fire.
Nearer and nearer to the fire. All at once, a great flame sprang up. With the word of fire blazing all about her, she ran towards me, shrieking. The more I covered her, the more she shrieked and tried to kill herself.
In a second, we all were struggling like desperate enemies.
I held her forcibly down with all my strength. At last, she was sensible.
When I looked down, I was astonished to see that both my hands were burnt.
was the kindest of nurses.
They are your arms, my dear boy. I was speaking of Magwitch. Do you know Pip? He improves.
I thought he softened last.
So he is. He was very communicative of last night and told me more of his life. You remember his speaking of some women? Well, he went more into that part of his life. And what a dark, wild part it is. Shall I tell you?
Tell me by all means.
Are you quite cool?
Quite.
It seemed that the woman was a young woman, a jealous woman, a revengeful woman, revengeful Pip to the last degree.
What last degree?
Murder. Her victim was found throttled. Mr. Jaggers defended her. In fact, his defence of her was how he first made his name.
Reporting guilty.
No, Mr. Jaggers got her acquitted.
Oh!
My poor dear Pip, I hurt you.
It's impossible to be gentle, Herbert. Please, go on.
The acquitted young woman and Magwitch had a girl.
Yes.
Are you feverish? No, you're rather excited, but you're quite yourself.
I don't like myself. The man that we have down by the river is Stella's father.
Yes, Pip.
I made a visit to Miss Havisham regarding her adopted daughter, and she gave me all information that she possessed.
Ha! If I were Miss Havisham, I would have kept my information to myself. But she knows her own business best.
Perhaps I know more of Miss Havisham's adopted daughter's past than she does herself. I know her mother.
Her mother?
I have seen her mother within these past 3 days.
Yes.
And so have you, sir. And you have even more recently still.
Yes.
Perhaps I know more of Estella's past than you do yourself, sir. I know her father too.
You know the young girl's father?
His name is Abel Magwitch, from New South Wales.
And what does this man from New South Wales have evidence of?
He does not have evidence. He has no information or belief that his daughter is in existence.
Put to the case, Mr. Pip, that a child was being concealed by her mother at the same time an eccentric, rich young lady was looking to adopt and entrusted her legal advisor with procuring such a child.
I follow you, sir.
Put to the case that at that time the legal advisor found children being set up for destruction.
I follow you, sir.
Put to the case, Mr. Pip, that out of the heap there was a pretty young, shining child that could be saved.
I understand you perfectly.
But that I make no admissions.
That you make no admissions, sir.
No admissions.
Put to the case that after 20 years she was married for money. Put to the case, Mr. Pip, that it was a secret, but you had caught wind of the secret. I ask you to put that case to yourself very, very carefully.
I do.
I ask Wemmick to put it to himself very, very carefully.
I do.
Now, for whose sake would you reveal the secret? The father's? The daughter's? The mother's? Why drag her back down to poverty after 20 years? But, Pip, put to the case that you had fallen in love with her. Now, I may as well tell you to chop off that left hand with your bandaged right hand and pass the chopper on to Wemmick to chop off the other.
No admissions.
If you want to know something about your uncle, come down to the little boathouse by the river tomorrow night at 9. Tell no one. Come alone. Is anyone there?
Now I've got ya!
Oleg, unbind me, let me go.
I'll let you go all in good time.
Why have you lured me here?
Don't you know? You cost me that place. You did. Speak!
What else could I do? What are you going to do to me?
I'm gonna have your life.
You was always in old Orlick's way ever since you was a child. He'll have no more on you. You're dead as did for your shrew sister.
It was you!
I tell you it was your doing! I come upon her from behind. I give it her, but it weren't old Orlick as it were. It was you. You was famous and he was funny to beat. Now you's paid for it. I've taken up with new masters. I looks for you and I find your uncle. You with an uncle too. There's them that can't have Magwitch. Yes, I know the name! Alive in the same land as them. And now I'm gonna drop you like a bullock! Where compass on in the gallows?
Oh, the great heavens!
Tonight's the night. I've still Wimmix. The packet boat sails in an hour.
My friends and I rode with a steady stroke that's to last all day.
Is he here?
Not yet.
Right, so let's not come down till he saw us. Can you see the signal?
Not from here. Wait, I think I see him. Yes, that's him. Slow, both, easy.
Dear boy, faithful dear boy, thank you, thank you.
Gentlemen, are we ready? Have we set to running again at steady even strokes?
Just then, I saw a four-oared galley shoot out from under the bank, away to our left.
And there was an officer on board.
You have an escaped convict on there. His name is Abel Magwitch. I apprehend that man and call upon him to surrender, and you gentlemen to assist, in the name of the king. In an instant, I saw the face of the other culprit from long ago.
It was compass on the same ears as Magwitch died up. The galley rammed us! You went to water! Magwitch threw himself with his old enemies. We saw the two convicts struggling and clawing at each other, thrashing about in the water, until both men were lost beneath the Black River.
Only Magwitch surfaced was immediately manacled.
My repugnance to him had all melted away. And that poor hunted, wounded, shackled creature, I only saw in him a much better man than I had been to poor Joe.
The trial was short and very clear.
Dear boy, you've never deserted me. Never since me and you was alone. I'm so grateful for it.
You in much pain today?
None that I can complain of, dear boy.
You never do complain, dear Magwitch. There is something I must tell you. Can you understand me? You once had a daughter whom you loved and lost. She's living. She's found powerful friends. She's a lady. She's very beautiful. And I love her.
With a last faint effort, he raised my hand to his lips.
Then he gently let it sink to his breast again, where his own two hands lay.
I felt illness coming on me, and I knew very little else.
One morning, I tried to stand, but could not.
Who are you? What do you want?
Bailiffs, this is a matter that I dare say. You are arrested.
What is the debt?
£123.156. George's account, I think.
I had never dreamed of Joe having paid the money.
Is it you, Joe?
Look out, old chap.
Oh, Joe, you break my heart.
Wish we was ever best of friends. And when you're ready to go out for a ride, what larks?
Dear Joe, how long's it been?
You mean to say it how long your illness lasted?
Yes, Joe.
It's the end of May, Kit. Tomorrow's 1st of June.
You've been here all this time.
Pretty nigh, old chap. For as I say to Biddy when news of your being ill was brought by letter.
It's so delightful to hear from you, Joe. But I interrupt you in what you said to Biddy.
And Biddy, a Wordsworth, go to him, without loss of time. That was the word of Biddy. Go to him, said Biddy, without loss of time.
You heard who my patron was, Joe?
I think I did hear as it was not Miss Ashton.
Have you heard who it was, Joe?
I did. Astonishing.
You heard he was dead, Joe?
I think I might have heard he was something or another in a general way in that direction.
Did you hear of the circumstances, Joe?
Not particular, Pip.
Joe. heart.
Ever the best of friends, ain't you, Pip?
Yes, I am thankful that I've been ill, Joe.
There has been love between us, and what's been has been, and ever grown stronger.
Yes, Joe, steadily.
Goodbye, dear Pip.
The next morning, Joe was gone. I found a letter.
Not wishful to improve, I have departed, for you are well again, dear Pip, and will do better without Joe. P.S. Ever the best of friends.
What remains for me now but to follow him to the dear old forge?
I will go to Biddy and I will show her how humble and repentant I am.
Then I will say to her, Biddy, I think you once liked me very well. Only if you can like me as half as well as you once liked me before, and receive me like a forgiven child.
Then I will say to her, if you are to go through the world with me, you will surely make it a better world for me, and me a better man for it. And I will try hard to make it a better world for you.
Biddy, how smart you are.
Yes, dear Pip.
And Joe, how smart you are.
Yes, dear old chap.
This is my wedding day and I'm married to Joe.
My dear Biddy, you have the best husband in all the world. I sold all I had and put aside as much as I could for a composition with my creditor. I joined Herbert. Within a month, I had quit England, and within 2 months, I was working as a clerk for Clarricker & Co. It was many years before I became a partner in the house, but I lived with Herbert, and I lived happily and frugally, and I paid off my debts and maintained a constant correspondence with Biddy and Joe.
You named him Pip. You think he might grow up to be somewhat like you?
It was not until I became third in my firm that my secret good deed was betrayed to Herbert.
We were not in a grand way of business, but we had a good name, worked for our profit, and did very well. One day, back in England.
Dear Pip, are you sure you don't fret for her?
Oh no, I don't think so, Biddy.
Tell me, as an old friend, have you quite forgotten her?
Miss Biddy.
I secretly intended to revisit the site of that old house that evening, alone, for her sake.
Yes, for Stella's sake. Stella,
I am greatly changed. I wonder you know me.
all this time, it is strange that we should thus meet again, here where our first meeting was. Do you often come back?
I've never been here since.
Nor I.
I've often hoped and intended to come back, but have been prevented by many circumstances. Poor old place. And you live abroad still?
Still.
And do well, I'm sure.
I work pretty hard for a sufficient living, therefore, yes, I do well.
I've often thought of you.
Have you?
Of late. Often. There was a long, hard time where I kept you far from my thoughts, but since my husband's passing, I've allowed a memory of you a place in my heart.
Always held your place in my heart, Stella.
I little thought that I should take leave of you and take leave of this spot. I'm very glad to do so.
But that's a part again, Stella. To me, parting is a painful thing. The remembrance of our last parting has been ever mournful and painful.
But you said to me, God bless you, God forgive you. And if you could say that to me then, you won't hesitate to say that to me now, when suffering has taught me to understand your heart. I've been bent and broken, but I hope into a better shape. Be as considerate and good to me as you were, and tell me we are friends.
Friends, Stella.
And we'll continue friends apart.
As we walked out of that ruined place, where the morning mists had risen long ago and the evening mists were rising now,
And I saw no shadow of another parting from her.